My name is Michael Robert Caditz, and I am one of 4 plaintiffs who have sued the City of Vancouver. We are trying to stop the logging of Stanley Park. It's a logging operation that's been going on now for about a year, with a pause over the last few months for the summer, but slated to start up again in a few weeks. Approximately a year ago, I noticed a crew cutting down some trees up at Prospect Point area of Stanley Park. I have been going up to Stanley Park for 6 years now, and it's been a very peaceful, quiet place, a retreat, a place to get away from downtown city life. And I was quite disturbed to see some trees being cut down in an area that I normally cycle through. And at first I thought nothing of it. I did see some dead brown leaves on the trees, and I figured, oh, there must be some disease or something, so they have to cut down a few trees. But it was large enough to be very impactful. And so I did some investigation and research, and I found out that the City of Vancouver had hired a forestry firm, B.A. Blackwell and Associates, to log out 160,000 trees in Stanley Park, and this was just the beginning that I was seeing. So I did my research and realized that it was highly questionable, just from my own knowledge of ecology and from... I've had a lot of training in environmental science and ecology. I have a master's degree in sustainable energy management. I have a degree in philosophy, and something was fishy with the whole thing. So I didn't want to just accept that they were going to be cutting down thousands of trees, so I researched it and I contacted a few associates of mine who are scientists, and I had them come out and look at Stanley Park to see what was going on, and eventually I came to the conclusion that this was a completely unfounded endeavor. There was no reason for this. And what the City of Vancouver was claiming was that they had to cut down all of these 160,000 trees, which, by the way, represents about a third of all the trees in Stanley Park. An insect called a looper, some people call it a looper moth, had defoliated 160,000 trees. And these defoliated trees, which were either dead or partly dead, or defoliated and not dead, it was all confused. They weren't sure. They were just saying, well, you have to cut them all down, because they pose 2 dangers. 1, a fire hazard, and 2, a hazard that they're going to fall on people and property and cause damage or personal injury. So the scientists that I spoke with whom I consulted, said that that's simply not the case. One of the scientists that I talked to has done a lot of work down in California and Oregon, and he's done quite a bit of research which shows that thinning forests never is effective in reducing fire danger. It's an old narrative that's employed by logging companies, by forestry companies, in order to justify harvesting. So now that narrative is being used by the City of Vancouver. So I decided I need to step in. I need to bring the truth. So I'm not the scientist, but I consulted with scientists. So I did my homework. I brought in 7 experts, and they're all saying the same thing, which is they look around Stanley Park and they say, Michael, show me where the danger is. I'm like, that's the area that they're going to log in October of this year. And they looked at it, they said, well, why? So one area in particular is that I'm very attached to. It's the Chickadee Trail area. The City of Vancouver and its contractor Blackwell have labeled it the Chickadee Treatment Area. It's a beautiful, lush, fern-covered, in one of the most remote areas of Stanley Park, not far from Beaver Lake, off a pipeline road. You can look it up, Chickadee Trail. I brought at least 5 of the 7 experts there, and none of them saw any reason that area should be invaded with heavy machinery and trees being cut down. It will be tragic if it happens. It's a gorgeous, wild area. There's birds chirping. I've seen coyotes in that area. It's a peaceful area, and if they do to the Chickadee area what they've done to Prospect Point, it's just going to be ravaged. It's going to be destroyed. There'll be skid trails all through it. There'll be disrupted soil. There'll be disrupted anchor routes. So briefly, I'm not the scientist, but I can tell you the main points that the scientists have raised with regards to this logging operation in Stanley Park. First of all, there is no fire danger in Stanley Park. It's a rainforest. It's green. The soil's wet. Even in the height of summer. They came in July during hot weather and they said the soil's wet. There is there's several areas where the soil is not wet, and those are the areas where they've logged. They've opened up the forest, the sunlight is drying out the ground and causing fire danger. They've left fine fuels on the ground, fine fuels meaning the dried branches and so on, and those come down on the ground when they cut the trees down. They are creating the very fire danger that they say existed before they did any logging. If you look at the areas, as the scientists did, that they've already logged, the scientists found there to be fire danger there, and in the areas they've already logged, the scientists found there to be increased danger of falling trees. Why? Because the logging disrupts the root systems of the remaining trees, and the logging creates openings which become wind tunnels, which cause there to be higher winds during periods of heavy wind, and those higher winds are more likely to knock down the remaining trees. So if they want to prevent there from being fire danger and danger of blowdown because of their logging, and they have to log out the whole park, cut down every tree. Now if they do that, I will concede that they've eliminated all fire danger and all danger of falling trees. But by doing what they're doing, which is only cutting down a third of the park, they are raising the fire danger and they are raising the danger of falling trees. I brought in a wildfire expert from the interior, eastern British Columbia. So, which brings me to a very important point. So this wildfire expert is one of the authors of the documentation, big booklet, that accompanies a widely used software-based fire modeling system called Prometheus. Blackwell used Prometheus, Blackwell being the contractor, the forestry contractor, consultant that the City of Vancouver hired, who has an exclusive contract, who had an exclusive contract last winter and has already now signed with the City of Vancouver another exclusive contract for this upcoming logging, including the logging of the Chickadee, if it happens, if we can't stop it. Blackwell used Prometheus software in its assessment and in its report that it presented to the City of Vancouver, which is the entire basis for the whole logging operation. So the report, called the Stanley Park Looper Impact and Wildfire Assessment, gave the justification behind the logging and the recommendations for what areas should be logged and how extensive the logging should be, 160,000 trees. And the report was premised upon what the fire danger would be before logging, or as it was before they started logging, versus how much improvement there would be, how much lower danger there would be if they were to do the recommended logging. And in order to show that difference between no logging and then after we do our work, they used Prometheus software modeling to show before and after. One of the experts, as I said, that came to Stanley Park, and I purposely brought him here because of the fact that he is a co-author of the documentation that goes with Prometheus software. We were quite alarmed to find out or I was quite alarmed to find out, and this is why I brought the co-author here, that in the documentation for Prometheus software, there's a whole section about the limitations. It says in the documentation quite explicitly that there is no fuel type that is calibrated correctly for a hemlock forest. That is one of the limitations of Prometheus software. Will not provide accurate results in a hemlock forest. Further, It will not provide accurate results in a forest that has been impacted by an insect. So here we have two of those limitations that have been violated by Blackwell, and there's two more problems. The third violation is that Prometheus software modeling assumes there to be no fire response. So it gives a model of what wildfire growth would be after an ignition in a forest that's not a hemlock forest, that has not been impacted by insects, and where there's no response by any kind of fire suppression crew. None of those three would apply to Stanley Park. Stanley Park has at least 50 water hydrants distributed throughout the park. Big red hydrants, just like in the city streets of Vancouver. The City of Vancouver extended its water lines and water hydrant fire suppression system into Stanley Park. It's impossible to imagine that there will be a ignition in Stanley Park that was not responded to in 12 hours. The modeling shown in the Blackwell report says in the fine print 12 hours of, this is what it would look like in 12 hours. The three others who are now plaintiffs in a lawsuit and I, before we considered filing a lawsuit as a last resort, we contacted the park board, we contacted the city, we contacted everyone we could contact, called all the numbers, sent all the emails, and got nothing but runaround. Nobody would talk to us other than to say the canned narrative. We have to do this because of the fire danger and the danger of, the defoliation caused by the looper. It was a canned response that everyone got. We got it for weeks and weeks. And we finally decided the only way we were going to get anyone's attention is to file a lawsuit. And that's what we did. The City of Vancouver is fighting us tooth and nail. It's become apparent that the City of Vancouver is extremely committed to carrying forward and expanding this logging operation. They've cut down 7,000 trees. They have another 140, whatever the math is, plus trees to go. They're very committed. They're not backing down. We don't know why they're so committed to this. The science isn't behind it. They have very little scientific data. They have one guy, a UBC forestry professor, who parrots the same narrative. It's kind of, I think, shameful that a forestry professor, rather than doing actual science, would just regurgitate the narrative that the City of Vancouver is giving. People are asking me, well, why are they doing this? I have to be very careful. I do not want to be in the business or have liability for defaming anyone. I don't want to speculate. But I can tell you this, that there's something going on here. I don't know what it is or who's behind it. There's something going on that's very suspicious, because I don't know why the city would be so committed to spending money. Why do they want to spend money so badly? By the last calculations, it's somewhere between $15 and $20 million so far in just the last year since the work started. And not only are they spending this large amount of money, on one hand, while on the other hand the city's saying, well, we don't have enough money to fix the swimming pools. And now why are they doing it secretly? At the end of May 2024, money was secretly funneled away from the stabilization reserve. $11.1 million was secretly allocated at an in-camera session of the Vancouver City Council, and only documented in a secret confidential memo, which has now become public because of our lawsuit. $11.1 million secretly taken from the stabilization reserve to go to B.A. Blackwell and Associates to conduct this completely unjustifiable, unfounded, with no basis in science, logging operation. There's something that needs to be investigated here. It's getting worse, not better. Worse because the amount of money that was secretly allocated, $11.1 million, secretly taken from the stabilization reserve, is double what was obtained a year ago. So either the logging operation is expanding dramatically, or Blackwell is charging a lot more money. But the fact that it was done in secret, to me, is a red flag. The other very questionable aspect to this is that the city has gone around the 7 elected commissioners of the park board. This is particularly interesting to me because right now it's been in the news that the city wants to eliminate the park board completely. It appears to me that even though legally the park board has not been eliminated, that will still take provincial legislation, which David Eby has said he will go along with if he remains premier, unfortunately. But that hasn't happened yet. The park board is still authoritative. The City Charter of Vancouver gives exclusive control over the parks to the 7 elected commissioners. The City of Vancouver has no business going in and stepping on the territory of the democratically elected park board commissioners and embarking on this huge logging operation to remove 1/3 of the trees in Stanley Park at a cost of now approaching between $15 and $20 million without the approval of the 7 elected commissioners. The City of Vancouver is now behaving like there's no park board.
Have any of those 7 members commented on any of this?
Not publicly. They've never voted to approve the logging operation. There's never even been a motion presented by any of the commissioners at a park board meeting to even consider the logging. The park board has just not been involved, and now they have been notified. To be fair, the City of Vancouver staff, the Urban Forestry Department, after they sign contracts with Blackwell, then they do PowerPoint presentations to the commissioners saying, oh, by the way, last month we signed a contract with Blackwell. We went to court and we're requesting what's called an interlocutory injunction, which would freeze the logging, stop the logging for the time being until the matter can be further investigated by the courts, which may take some time. It's a 2-day hearing. The first day happened yesterday, Monday, September 16th. The second half of the hearing is going to be this coming Friday, the 20th of September 2024. And after that, second day, the judge is going to decide whether or not to block the logging. I don't know if the judge will decide immediately or whether the judge will have to take it under submission for a few days or a week or two. But within a couple of weeks, we're going to know whether this logging has been blocked or whether it hasn't been blocked. If the judge elects not to block the logging, then we will find other ways. We're not going to give up. We do not want this to happen. I love this Chickadee area. It's a gorgeous area, and there's other areas like it in Stanley Park that are under threat right now. But I think most importantly, we have to be very concerned about where this is going. Larger amounts of money now being taken in secret out of the reserves of the city. It's suspicious, and this needs to be investigated. This, I think, is bigger than just the logging. Doing things in secret, that is an ominous sign. We need people to investigate. People who have the resources and the capability need to see what's going on here, get to the bottom of it before it gets completely out of hand. It's already out of hand. This does not bode well for our city. Stanley Park is a gem because it's in all of Canada and all the world. It's one of the most beautiful urban parks. It's a beautiful blend of wilderness in an urban setting. It has withstood centuries now of since colonization, since development of Vancouver. Somehow it's remained protected as a semi-wilderness area, a retreat where people could go and escape from the urban environment and experience nature, at least in a semi-wild state. It's survived for decades and decades and decades. It's been protected, and now suddenly this city government of Vancouver is going to ruin it all after centuries. We cannot let this happen.